Situated on the Danube bank, the town of Calafat is a place full of history, the settlement being over the centuries an important landmark of cultural heritage and events in the lives of the inhabitants of the region. An absolutely remarkable building right in the center of the town is the Museum of Art and Ethnography, better known as Marincu Palace. This construction was included in the National Heritage of Romania in 2003. The palace was built after the designs made by the French architect Paul Gauthiereau, renowned at the beginning of the 20th century in Romania for having designed the Royal Palace in Bucharest, the Central University Library, or the Jean Mihail Palace in Craiova. The masons were Italian masters led by engineer Pietro Adotti. The foundation stone was laid in the autumn of 1904, the construction being ready 3 years later when it was inaugurated with an impressive party in 1908. The palace was built in the neoclassic style of the French Baroque, with influences of Romanian architecture from the beginning of the 20th century. The building stretches over 8,330 square meters, being imposing both in size and volume, and for its harmonious architectural lines and full of refinement details. Like any residence of a wealthy family, the main building had also a few annexes, such as the gatekeeper's house or the two-floored house on the right of the yard, where the stables and the garages for cars were situated, while the rooms for the staff were upstairs. There were also the annexes for raising animals, the ice house and the greenhouse at the back of the palace, with flowers and fruit trees. The palace, which has almost 50 rooms on 3 levels, cost at the time the fabulous sum of 1 million gold coins. It had from the beginning running water, electric light, central heating with radiators, and even an elevator for taking food from the basement kitchen to the dining room on the ground floor. The facade is of a pure white, perfectly balanced, framed between the roof and the tall ground floor, and plated with grey stone. Many windows and door windows with beautiful framings open outward. The main entrance is guarded by 2 columns situated on both sides of the stairs, where 2 lions are watching in front of them. There were used the best materials and decorative techniques when building the palace. The marble was brought from Italy, being either white or of a pastel shade. The huge Murano mirrors fixed on lacy frames on the side walls are also remarkable. The stucco works spanning over the walls or ceilings are mostly covered in gold, being interlaced with geometrical and floral motifs. The walls of the main hall have diverse marble insertions, while the columns have their capitals minutely accomplished. The wealth of decorations and the care for refined details remind us of the epoch of good taste and wealthy life from the beginning of the 20th century. A rectangular skylight was fixed into the ceiling, with a frame of colored crystals in the dominant shades of the room, yellow and pale green, in order to get more daylight. A large and glittering chandelier of Bohemia was once hanging from the ceiling, but now it is gone. It had many rows of translucent crystal cups from where the light of electric bulbs was sending rainbow glints. The ground floor rooms were destined for living, each having a certain thematic register, such as the Oriental or the Romanian room. All the halls are distinguished even today through the ceilings with arabesques of golden stucco works. The bedrooms for guests were upstairs, each of them having a different shade of white, pink, yellow or navy blue. The rooms of the palace held extremely valuable interior objects, such as furniture Louis XIV style, or tapestry and carpets of French silk. An exception was the Romanian room, where a nice old Tinian carpet was laid on the floor. The Oriental room held priceless handmade carpets, Turkish pillows and scarves, expensive weapons, and furniture encrusted in mother-of-pearl. Carrara marble sculptures brought from Italy and bronze busts were placed all over the palace. Beyond its remarkable aspect, this imposing building has a story full of grief and sadness. The history of the Marinko family in the region of Calafat starts with Marinko Tenovic's arrival, who, together with his wife, crossed the Danube coming from the Timok Valley of the region of Novo Selo and established in Poiana Mare. The family became soon very rich, passing from dealing in wool to dealing with animals, succeeding in selling very profitably thousands of pigs on the fairs of Budapest and Vienna. The money was used to lease large areas of land, which they later bought. The family had already changed the initial name of Tenovic into Marinko after their grandfather's Christian name. The man who effectively raised the palace of Calafat saw the daylight in this family. Stefan Marinko was born in Poiana Mare on January 1858. His father Ionita was an ambitious man who sent all his children to study abroad. Stefan Marinko graduated the commercial secondary school in Brașov, then in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and the Academy of High Economic Sciences in Vienna. Back in Poiana Mare, he married Maria Mirica, a beautiful green-eyed brunette of 17, in 1884. The couple had 2 daughters. The former, Olga, died in infancy of consumption, considered the disease of the time. The parents' tragedy didn't stop here, though. The latter child, Mariwara, was born in Calafat on March 6, 1887. She was a beautiful and intelligent child, very gifted for music. When she was 4, she began taking lessons with foreign teachers. Later, due to the health problems that had already appeared, she spent her winters in Italy or southern France. She studied everywhere with the greatest piano players of the time. She had a brilliant future, but destiny had already established something else for her. She got TB, and in spite of the huge financial efforts, she passed away at the age of only 13 in the sanatorium of Glion, Switzerland, on August 7, 1900, leaving behind an overwhelming sorrow and ruined hopes for the parents. Her father, Stefan Marinko, decided to raise the palace of Calafat in her memory. After finishing the palace and inaugurating it in 1908, destiny struck ruthlessly again, and after only 7 years, towards the end of 1913, Stefan Marinko developed severe lung consumption, an illness that had killed both his daughters, a brother, a sister, and many other relatives. Despite special care and the winter spent on Côte d'Azur, the disease advanced quickly. Back in Calafat, he felt the end was near, so he wrote his will on April 23, 1914. He passed away after 2 more months on June 16, 1914, at the age of 56. In his will, Stefan Marinko bequeathed the palace to the local community, stipulating that they had to organize there a girls' school in remembrance of his daughter. His wife, Maria Marinko, continued to live and manage the palace until her death in 1926. Then the palace was practically acquired by the town hall of Calafat. Initially it was St. Mary Girls' School and then a kindergarten. Later it was a vocational school where the young girls were taught how to sew, to embroider or make trousseaux for the brides. After that, the palace hosted the lectures of the Agricultural School of Calafat, then some administrative services, and one branch was allotted to the Pioneers' House. Starting with 1967, the Museum of Art and Ethnography carried out its activity here, whose heritage included donations initially, followed by acquisitions of art values. Now the museum has a rich collection of art objects displayed in permanent exhibitions, but it also organizes personal exhibitions of some contemporary, domestic or foreign artists. There are exhibited works of Romanian contemporary painting, graphics and sculpture, outstanding among them being paintings by Nicolae Grigorescu, Henry Cartagi and Theodore Pallade, and sculptures by Ion Urimescu, Nicu Enea or George Demetrescu Mirea. In September 2012, the history section of Calafat was initiated here, achieved with the important support of Florența and Ilie Marinko, descendants of the old family, who made important donations to the museum, among which the concert piano and the chandelier of the Great Hall of Mirrors, as concerts or symposiums take sometimes place here. The last partial restoration was carried out in 2003. The Marinko Palace attracts all the passers-by's sights and admiration due to its beauty and elegance. It is an impressive heritage that the Marinkos, tried so hard by the fate, generously left to the community where they had lived. Now, due to the inauguration of the bridge between Calafat and Vidin, and the cultural and social events it handsomely hosts, the Museum of Art and Ethnography may be considered, without fears of being wrong, the most important cultural center of the whole cross-border region of the Danube. The content of this material does not necessarily represent the official position of the European Union,